Stretch out those limbs and get ready to climb, because it's time for even more Mario. Because ladies and gentlemen, this is Dev Diary, a series where I try to make my own video games. So if game dev videos are your thing, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you don't miss future videos. So real quick before we begin, I highly recommend checking out part 1 if you haven't already. A link to that video can be found in the description below. Because we will not be covering the base mechanics or systems. Instead, we're basically picking up right where we last left off. Now, as stated last time, there were a few ideas left to be added, and all of today's additions come in the form of enemy types. So we'll start with the most basic and work our way up from there. First up is the Shy Dude. If the player is within the same quote-unquote section as these ghastly looking things, they will randomly spit fireballs in the player's direction. These fireballs behave exactly as the players, only with a much shorter lifetime. Now what makes these things dangerous is that they can fire in any direction, and when they attack is entirely random. A fun fact, this was originally supposed to also have like a mechanic where they wouldn't attack if the player was looking at them. The problem was, kind of trying to define when the player was actually looking in a particular direction, so that idea was nixed. Up next is an accidental body horror nightmare. The part spike death machine, part fleshy bits enemy is similar to the Thwomp from Mario. It'll do a bit of a shake to warn the player that something's about to happen before slamming either up or down, only stopping when they hit solid flooring or the limits of their section. Basically a more aggressive vertical version of the turtles minus, the egg dropping. And finally, we have the Cat Mech. Get it? Like Kamek, aka the wizard, thus wizard hat, but also kind of looks like a catfish. Anyway, the enemy that I was most anticipated in adding, these things are capable of shifting gravity itself. Indeed, those cat mech may not attack the player directly, but instead they affect the direction that Mario will fall. They will shake similarly to those body horror nightmares, but instead of doing some crazy movement, they simply turn in a direction and shift the gravity in said direction. The gravity can be reset by hitting a cat mech, though much like every other enemy in the game, it's only temporary. Thankfully, they're only active when the player is within their section, so they don't have to worry about gravity changing on them randomly. Now the plan was to add more enemy types, especially a few suggested by you lovely folk in the comments. Unfortunately, by this point it felt like the game was getting kind of full. Along with the HUD being updated, there are now about twice as many section layouts, which has now started to make the game kind of feel a little too hard or too complicated. Like what was originally a silly gimmick with a weird main character started turning into some type of weird, like a puzzle but not really game that was less fun and more tedious of an experience. It's entirely possible that maybe an extension in the mechanics or environmental features would have helped diversify things, but it's also entirely possible that that would have just led to scope/feature creep, and maybe this idea just doesn't have such legs to stand on. So I've actually decided to see what y'all think by releasing this one as a playable game. So if you are a Patreon supporter, you can download the game right now at the link in the description, which seems like the perfect time to remind you that if you enjoy the content, supporting me on Patreon is the best way to help me keep making it, and doing so can get you access to exclusive content and downloads and even early access to the weekly Dev Diary videos before they're released on YouTube. Having said that though, whether you play it or not, I'd love to know what you thought of these new ideas, especially in addition to the original. Like, are they good ideas? Are they bad ideas? Do the new additions make things too complicated? Whatever's on your mind, feel free to share it in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like. With that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.